Introduction. The kitchen smelled faintly of baked bread as 20-year-old Sophie sat at the dining table, doodling half-heartedly in the margin of her notebook. Rain tapped steadily against the windows, filling the silence of the house with a soft rhythm. Exams were around the corner, but Sophie hadn't managed to stay focused on her revision. Her mother, Mrs. Harris, knew it all too well. She stepped into the dining room carrying a few sheets of paper she had been preparing. She laid them down in front of Sophie, who immediately stiffened. "A practice test," her mother announced, in the brisk tone Sophie knew meant there would be no argument. "You say you're ready, so let's see it." Sophie blinked at the papers. "Now?" "Mum, I was just..." "No excuses." Her mother folded her arms, her expression calm but firm. "Half an hour. I'll check your answers when I'm back. It's just between us, no marks, no grades, just honesty." Sophie gave a little groan and slouched lower in her chair, twisting the pen between her fingers. "Fine," she muttered. Her mother leaned closer, lowering her voice in that way that always carried more weight than shouting. "Listen to me, Sophie. This is about effort, not perfection. I want to see your work. No notes, no phone, no tricks. If you don't know an answer, you admit it. Do you understand?" "Yes, Mum," Sophie mumbled, trying to look obedient though her eyes darted away. Mrs. Harris searched her daughter's face for a moment, then gave a small nod. "Good. I'll be in the kitchen. Do your best." The temptation and cheating Sophie drummed her fingers against the table, eyes fixed on the sheet of questions. The first one mocked her instantly, something about equations she hadn't practiced in weeks. She scribbled a half-hearted attempt, then pushed the paper away with a groan. "This is pointless," she muttered under her breath. Her gaze slid to the bag slumped on the chair beside her. Inside, her phone sat hidden, practically glowing in her imagination. All it would take was one quick search and the answer would be right there. Within seconds, the glowing search bar became her savior. She copied down the solution neatly, her heart racing, a guilty thrill running through her. Each time she looked something up, she told herself the same lie: this is the last one. But question after question fell the same way. Her pen scratched quickly across the paper, and the empty spaces filled up with perfect answers that weren't really hers. By the time she reached the final question, Sophie leaned back with a triumphant sigh, twirling her pen. The phone slipped back into her bag, hidden as though nothing had happened. She smiled at the finished sheet in front of her. Neat. Complete. Impressive. Yet even as she admired it, a tiny knot of unease tugged inside her. Her mother had asked for honesty, not perfection, and Sophie had chosen the shortcut. Mother's suspicion and discovery. The dining room door creaked open, and Sophie nearly jumped in her chair. She quickly straightened her posture, pen still in hand as if she had been working diligently the whole time. Her mother stepped inside, drying her hands with a tea towel. "Time's up," she said warmly, but her eyes were sharp as ever. She reached for the sheet. "Let's see how you've done." Sophie slid the paper across the table with what she hoped was a casual smile. "It wasn't too bad," she said, trying to sound natural. Mrs. Harris scanned the answers, her brows lifting slightly. "Oh. Not bad at all. In fact, these are almost perfect." She flipped through the pages, her eyes narrowing just a fraction. Her mother set the paper down and folded her arms. Then tell me, without looking, how did you get to this answer?" Sophie froze. Her throat went dry. Well, it's kind of complicated to explain, isn't it? Mrs. Harris arched one eyebrow, her silence heavier than any scolding. Sophie squirmed in her seat, fiddling with her pen. She avoided her mother's gaze, but the tension in the room pressed down on her shoulders. Her mother sighed, the disappointment in her face sharper than anger. "So you cheated," she said quietly. Sophie shrank in her chair, her voice barely above a whisper. I just didn't want to look stupid." Mrs. Harris set the paper down slowly, the air around them heavy with unspoken consequences. "You know what happens when you take shortcuts instead of being honest, Sophie." The confrontation and scolding Mrs. Harris stood very still, her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on her daughter. The ticking of the clock in the hallway filled the silence between them. Her mother raised an eyebrow. "Didn't mean to?" "Sophie, you unlocked your phone, searched every question, and copied it neatly as if you had solved them yourself. That's not an accident, that's a choice." The words struck harder than Sophie expected. Her throat tightened, and she twisted her fingers in her lap. "I just didn't want you to think I was stupid." Mrs. Harris pointed to the sofa. "Stand up, young lady. We are going to deal with this properly." Sophie hesitated, then pushed herself up, her heart thudding. She bit her lip, glancing at her mother's steady, unyielding expression. The unique punishment. Sophie stood by the sofa, twisting her hands together, her heart racing. She had expected her mother's scolding, but now, with her mother's steady gaze fixed on her, she knew something else was coming. Sophie shuffled closer, uncertain. "Mum, are you going to?" Her mother gave her a small, knowing smile. "Oh, I won't be using a cane or a paddle today." "No, Sophie. For lying and thinking you could get away with it, I think something else will teach you better." "Mum. What are you doing?" Sophie squeaked, wriggling. Her mother's voice was calm, almost amused. "You think you can hide things from me? Let's see how well you can hide this." Her fingers dug lightly into Sophie's sides, and Sophie's body jerked violently. Don't, don't you dare." But Mrs. Harris was relentless. She wriggled her fingers against Sophie's ribs, then slid them up under her arms, sending Sophie into uncontrollable laughter. "Ah. No. Stop. Ha ha ha. Please." Sophie shrieked, thrashing helplessly. Her mother only tickled faster, her tone stern but almost playful. "So, you thought cheating was funny business, did you? Let's see how funny you think this is." Sophie kicked her legs, twisting, her laughter spilling out in loud, breathless bursts. I can't breathe, please stop." Mrs. Harris gave her a short pause, letting Sophie gasp for air. Then she leaned closer, her voice firm. "Will you ever cheat again?" Sophie's eyes were wide, her chest heaving. "No, never. I swear." Her mother raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Because liars aren't always so quick to learn. Maybe you need a little more convincing." Before Sophie could protest, her mother's fingers attacked again, this time at her stomach and the backs of her knees. Sophie exploded into squeals of laughter, curling up like a ball, utterly helpless. "Ha ha ha. Mum, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll never cheat again, I promise," she screamed between fits of laughter. "I get it, no more cheating. Ever."